We're back with The Lead live in Philadelphia, and right now the Law and Justice Lead, because President Trump's Justice Department has been announcing it is filing lawsuits against 5 more states, Utah, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Kentucky, and New Jersey across the river, for failing to produce full voter registration lists upon request. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi calls the lawsuit part of the Justice Department's duty to ensure transparency and secure elections across the country. Here with me to discuss, Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean from right here in Pennsylvania. We're in Haverford, literally right now. Is this your district?
Right adjacent to my district.
Adjacent to your district.
Yes.
Whose district are we actually in?
Probably Mary Gay's. We're right on the border.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
Mary Gay Scanlon, forgive me, Representative Scanlon.
Yes, of course. So the Trump administration has now sued more than 24 states to get this voter data. What's your reaction? Why do you think they want this? They say it's just to make sure that only citizens are voting, I think.
My reaction is, why do they want this? States are in control of elections. They have asked Josh Shapiro and Pennsylvania for our voter rolls.
Shapiro's our governor, just for people out there.
Yes.
You're very familiar with the politicians today.
Yes. Well, excuse me, forgive me. Governor Shapiro and the Secretary of State for the voter rolls. That is sensitive information. The Trump administration has no right to it. And the Shapiro government, along with the Secretary of State for the state, have said no.
And I'm sure you saw the Washington Post report yesterday about President Trump being urged by some of his non-White House advisors that he should consider declaring a declaration of emergency of some sort ahead of the midterms so that he can stop paper ballots, et cetera, et cetera. The White House is pushing back, I should note, and the measures listed in the 2025 draft of the proposed executive order include requiring hand-marked and hand-counted paper ballots, requiring voters to register anew for the 2026 midterms with proof of citizenship. This is from the Washington Post. And restricting mail ballots to limited circumstances. The president says he's not considering this. He hasn't heard about it.
He's hoping to eliminate all mail-in ballots. And as you know, there's a robust mail-in ballot system here in Pennsylvania that has really liberated people to be able to vote with ease and accuracy and securely.
By the way, a lot of Republicans or vote by ballot, vote by mail. Seniors, or a lot of seniors are.
Let's go back. Mr. Trump himself voted by mail.
Yeah.
Over and over again. So this is, and the notion of emergency, that is Mr. Trump's special word. Everything's a crisis, everything's an emergency unless he has anything to do with it. And so we won't fall for it. And the Shapiro administration, the Secretary of State, are doing everything to put things in place to continue to make sure that the state has control of elections and that each county does what it needs to do. But I need everybody to know that this president will do anything he can to interfere with elections, including this crazy SAVE Act and everything else, that could disenfranchise more than 20 million Americans by requiring somebody like me to make sure I come in with a passport or a birth certificate that matches my legal name now. It is an attempt to disenfranchise millions of American citizens. It has nothing to do with voter fraud. There is no voter fraud.
I want to touch on something that might happen in the next couple days. We have no idea. A U.S. strike against Iran for not coming to an agreement with the United States on a denuclearization deal. President Trump in the State of the Union address said that Iran is, quote, working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States. Sources tell CNN that's not actually backed up by any U.S. intelligence. What's your position on potential strikes against Iran?
My position is I wish that the president would be honest and clear-cut in terms of what his ambition is. He has 2 carrier strikes there. He has 140 airplanes there. He has 40,000 members of the military in line. This is a very dangerous escalation with absolutely no definition of mission. I'm a member of Congress. Article 1, Section 8 says that he must come to Congress to talk about any kind of an activity that would be connected with war. And what's even worse is the president hasn't gone to the American people to say what he's interested in. Is it about uranium enrichment? Is it about ballistic missiles, as you just said? Is it about regime change? Is it about democracy? Is it about protecting those protesters? He's given us absolutely no indication. I've just come back from Israel. I don't know that I told you this.
No.
I was in Israel last week, a week and a half ago. And I feel for the citizens of that region, for the Israeli citizens who are constantly on tiptoe as to what might happen as a result of the United States involvement in Iran without any definition or contact with Congress, which would be, to my mind, illegal. And so I have great empathy for people of the region. And the people of Iran deserve better. The protesters who fight for democracy in Iran deserve better. I hope the President and Mr. Witkoff and Jared Kushner and most importantly, the Secretary of State. I wish he would step up much more forward than Witkoff and Kushner and have a much more sober conversation, both diplomatically and then with Congress and the American people.
All right, Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Nice to be here in Pennsylvania.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.